This is Accent RTV. Maria Восс here with you in the studio with Dr. Lindою Šmidт and Dr. Robert Nікельом. And we will be interviewing these great professionals in their field who go to the Ukraine and help conduct training to the local professionals there on the subjects of autism. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and I'm director of the Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Outpatient Clinic at OHSU. My interest in this stemmed from my father was an ethnic German who was born and raised in Ukraine in the Zhytomyr region and immigrated to the United States, and so my desire was to give something back to his country of origin.
I'm Bob Nickel, the other half, and I'm a developmental pediatrician. I'm working part-time now, and which gives me time to do other things, and I've always wanted to get more involved doing training and education internationally.
I know that in the Ukraine and in Russia, it is considered that some genetical factors would influence the development of autism, or, for example, like mercury poisoning, or maybe vaccination issues, or maybe excessive antibiotics treatments, etc. Are those true causes? Is it considered here in the U.S. also that these are the true causes of the autism?
So we know autism is primarily a genetic disorder. If we look at identical twins, varies study to study, but as many as 90% of identical twins, if one has autism, the other one will have autism. So we know genetic factors are very important. And there's been a lot written about the possibility that vaccines or immunizations might be involved, the mercury in vaccines or the measles vaccine. There's been a considerable amount of research around the world that has debunked those theories. Vaccines have no relation to autism. Similarly, whether you take antibiotics or get many courses of antibiotics is not related. So there are many theories that research has shown to be untrue, basically. And one of the things that we have done when we've been teaching in the Ukraine is try to debunk some of the misconceptions that are left over from the old Soviet system. There are many other factors that have been identified as being associated with an increased risk. For example, women who have diabetes during the pregnancy, women who have premature babies, women who get flu during the pregnancy. And there's been some environmental factors that seem to have some role, such as air pollution. Some of the chemicals used in pesticides, insecticides. So the current thinking is that there's likely the genetic risk, and then there may be some environmental factors that are triggers for kids to get autism.
How did you identify the need to bring this training and this program into the Ukraine?
In 2016, there was a group of 3 of us, and the initial trainings were just around raising public awareness of mental health issues. And then in a third city, we did a several-day training on training therapists on how to treat obsessive compulsive disorder. We also did training on a study called the Adverse Childhood Event Study, which has been replicated in Russia as well as around the world. And that looks at how trauma in early childhood can affect adult outcomes and adult medical health. And in each city, the feedback consistently was we really need training on how to identify and how to treat autism. And so that's where we focused on in the last 2 years.
Your typical audience there would be professional doctors.
If I spoke at a university, it would include professionals, but also students. And in Lviv, at the Ukrainian Catholic University, there were 200 or so school counselors and school psychologists that attended, and then there are individuals who want more specific training in autism that might attend one of Bob's lectures, and then there are speech pathologists who would attend our speech pathologist colleague her lecture. So it really, the audience varies.
So for my talks, a lot of that was pediatricians, child psychiatrists, and some child neurologists, so doctors.
I was actually wondering what is like who is covering your travel expenses, who is covering your project expenses, I would call it that way.
We pay for our travel expenses to and from Ukraine. And once we arrive there, there are 3 different entities that then cover our accommodations and our food and our transportation in between the cities. But as of yet, we have not received any grants.
Who is actually providing some actual support to this cause and your program?
But in Zhytomyr, it's a non-governmental agency, a nonprofit that was originally started here in Hillsborough and has really expanded. And in Lviv and Ivano-Frankivsk, we get, I don't know exactly how it works, but we do get support from the universities there through our colleagues that work there.
When you go there, do you typically stay a couple of weeks or a couple of months at a time?
No, it's typically 2 weeks because most of us are using vacation time.
I want to cite one survey done by the Children with Autism Support Foundation in 2015, and it cites as the top 5 most acute problems for people in Ukraine with autism to be no subject matter specialists, difficulty to get diagnosis, difficulty to get into schools, inability to begin the timely correction, and inability to get preschool education. Do you find this issues real, and do you think they get solved over the years from your first time being there and to your last trip?
Well, we heard a lot about all of those issues in our parent groups, particularly kids who the public schools wouldn't serve. And oftentimes those are kids with really challenging behaviors. The thing that has changed is the passage of the inclusive education law, which was a year ago in the spring, or maybe before that. The wife of the previous president was very instrumental in getting that passed.
Well, what we heard is that when this inclusive education plan was put into place, the teachers had absolutely no training. And so they had these disruptive kids in the classroom. And the classrooms aren't designed to support a child with high sensory needs. So that has been an issue. And one of the talks I did with the school psychologists and school counselors in Lviv was on some very basic, simple classroom interventions that they could then train teachers on how to implement.
The other thing we learned about is that the tools that we use here to help diagnose kids with autism aren't available there.
So one of the diagnostic tools that we frequently use here in the U.S. is something called the ADOS, or Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, I think, or scale. And what we learned is that in order to obtain the ADOS materials in Ukraine, the publishing house that has purchased the rights from the American company, they charge $3,000 to $5,000 for someone to purchase the manual and the kit that is required.
It's very expensive to buy the kit. It's very expensive to get the training, and it's somewhat hard to learn how to use the ADOS materials appropriately with young kids. The tool we decided to take and teach over there is much less expensive, much easier to learn. Compared to the ADOS, which takes 45 or 60 minutes, this tool takes 15 or 20 minutes. And it's called the Screening Tool for Autism in Toddlers. But both help you make accurate observations of the behaviors that help us to diagnose autism. So what we did is we had purchased some kits that we took with us. So we had a limited number of kits. We had 2 that we left in each city after doing the training for people to practice with, so they could become certified in their use. We worked with Vanderbilt University, which has the copyright for this particular tool. And so we got the kits, the 6 kits we took with us at half price, but that we won't be able to get any more kits at half price. So it would be just lovely for us to be able to provide a STAT kit to everyone who becomes certified in its use.
And the STAT kits that we did bring over were personally funded.
Are those kits available in Ukrainian or Russian language, or are they only available in English?
So what we did to introduce them is we translated all the materials for the kits and how to use them into Ukrainian. Then had it back translated so that we can see that the Ukrainian translation was accurate, and if there were any errors that we could correct them. So the protocols are available for scoring, and how to do it and how to score the test in Ukrainian. And I should say the other thing we're trying to do, and it's a slow process, is to identify matching toys. So we can so somebody in Ukraine can get their own bag and get their own toys in Ukraine at much cheaper price than having to buy it from Vanderbilt University.
Are there by any chance any resources or maybe training material that are available for free, maybe entry level, that are available to parents?
When we think about diagnosing kids with autism, we want to collect information from parents, but we also want to observe their behaviors. So the tool I taught on was how do we observe their behaviors. There are several parent questionnaires, one called the MCHAT, or Modified Checklist for Autism in Toddlers, that has been translated into Ukrainian and Russian. And so we talked a little bit about that. So that's a way of getting parent information, but you really need both together to help make accurate identification of kids. Parents can watch and see the behaviors you're talking about that indicate autism, and helps them understand, well, yes, my child has autism. A lot of parents may deny things because of stigma from having their child with autism or another mental health diagnosis. So we have found that by using an observational tool like the STAT or the ADOS, it helps them understand what we're talking about, and so they can accept the diagnosis and go on and get treatment.
That a group of volunteers had set a fundraising site through Good Samaritan Industries in Ukraine, and they help to cover some of the costs and potentially some of the costs of your program. So the website is called smureport.com, and you can find it this link to this website underneath the video. Your help will be much appreciated as it can make a difference in the Ukraine, especially with the people, children, families that face this issue. If you have any special need or need any special support, you please share with us, and maybe we will find more support for this program this way.
Can I just add one more thing? So we have a speech and language pathologist from OHSU, and she has been holding monthly Skype meetings with speech and language pathologists in Ukraine and doing supervision, and they have questions for her, and she's giving them information on interventions they can utilize. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Let me just jump on that as well, because it's important to understand it's not just our going there and doing workshops for 2 weeks, because I'm not sure how much would change just by doing that. So with speech and with myself in terms of the tool I used, and then the early autism training, we're all doing follow-up with the people who were in those workshops.
Right. And then I've also been providing ongoing consultation via Zoom to a group of child psychiatrists in Lviv. So those are just some of the other things that we're doing on an ongoing basis. So
you ask about funding, and Linda and I, having MDs, we get higher salaries just by having the MD, and so we're more capable of funding our own travel over there and back. But as an example, they are interested in having an occupational therapist come, and we're interested in finding someone who can do social skills training. And there's a program out of UCLA, as an example, that we'd like to partner with to have someone come. If we had funds to support their travel, it's a lot easier to get the right people to come at the right time.
I think also the request that I repeatedly get from the psychologist and the child psychiatrist, you know, do you have workbooks, or because many of them do speak English, are there books that you can send us or provide for us? So just things like that.
You mentioned that there is a need to translate some of the diagnostic kits and treatment kits, maybe some other resources. Do people that translate this, do they need to have some special training, certification?
For some of the materials, not really very medical at all. An example is when somebody is sitting, they have to look at a video and score a video of this the stat administration and send their scores in. Those are just very, you know, basic Ukrainian, basic English, so they could be translated by anyone who's a translator. There are a few things that would have more of a medical component, so if there is somebody who has a medical background, that would be great.
Well, we have a large American Ukrainian community. Please reach out to us and help us if you can help. We wish you good luck in your trip and good luck in your work. Your effort and support are really very much appreciated. So today we're here with Dr. Lindою Šmidт and Dr. Robert Nікельом. And we're in the studio of Accent RTV. This is Maria Восс. Thank you, and check in with us again.